Hot hatches are great things, aren't they? They offer you exciting performance for a reasonable price. And here I've got three of the most exciting hot hatches currently on sale today. The Vauxhall Astra VXR, the Ford Focus ST and the Renaultsport Megane. I think I'm going to have some fun.
Each car uses a 2-litre turbocharged petrol engine. However, their claimed performance figures do differ. The Ford has 247 brake horsepower and will do 0 to 62 miles an hour in 6.5 seconds. The Renault, on the other hand, has 262 brake horsepower and is half a second quicker to 62 miles an hour. The Vauxhall, though, is the most powerful, with 276 brake horsepower, and it can do 0 to 62 miles an hour in just 5.9 seconds, apparently. But what will happen if these cars meet at the traffic lights? Well, there's only one way to find out. Yes, it's time for the obligatory drag race.
Needless to say, I've gone and given myself the Astra because it's the one with the most power. So in theory, I should win this race, but let's see what happens. Got all the driver's aids off, so it's nice and fair. Let's get into first and let's go. Oh, come on! Come on, Vauxhall!
I couldn't quite believe the result, and so demanded a rerun. Unfortunately, the result was the same, so I made up an excuse for another race. I think there's a bit of a pattern developing here. Let's move on. Anyway, going fast in a straight line isn't just what these cars are about, is it? Handling is perhaps more important, and the technical Anglesey Circuit is the perfect place to see how these cars compare on a track.
Driving the Focus on the circuit, it feels pretty loose and pretty playful, which means that if you want to chuck it around, it's well up for that, you can, and it's quite a lot of fun actually. The only downside is that when you start pushing it hard, trying to get good lap times, you do start to notice the limitations, and one is that it doesn't have a mechanical limited slip differential. It tries to simulate one using electronics and the ESP, but out on a circuit there is no substituting good old-fashioned oily bits.
So what effect does this have on the Focus's lap time? I handed it over to Auto Express's racing driver Owen Mildenhall to find out. As expected, the car struggled at times for traction and as a result posted a mediocre lap time of 67.5 seconds. It probably didn't help that the brakes just weren't up to really hard track use. Oh dear, let's move on to the Renault, which doesn't have brakes, which can double as a barbecue.
It has a Brembo setup, and in the case of this Cup model, that includes grooved discs for improved cooling. That's really handy when you're thrashing about on a track because it helps reduce brake fade. The car also gets a mechanical limited slip differential, and you notice that it's much better at putting its power down when you're exiting a corner than the Ford Focus. The car also gets lower and stiffer suspension, and that means that it feels a lot more planted, especially through high-speed corners and when there's rapid changes of direction. I mean, this does mean that it doesn't feel quite as playful as the Focus, but you know, it's still pretty agile, so if you want to muck about, you can do.
Really though, Renault has designed the Megane 265 Cup as a track day hero, so fast lap times are what it's all about. And with Owen at the wheel, it posted a 66.4 second lap, which is significantly faster than the Focus STs.
The first thing you notice when you get into the Astra is that it somehow manages to find even more grip than the Megane. Similar to the Renault, it has a mechanical limited slip differential, but it uses it to even greater effect. In fact, the front end on this car is absolutely incredible. It resists understeer better than any other front wheel drive car I've driven. And if you do go into a corner a little bit too hot, rather than backing off the throttle to tighten the nose, you just plant your right foot and somehow the front end just scrambles its way around. It's an absolute beast, this thing.
But how will it perform in the hands of our racing driver? Well, let's find out. The Vauxhall posted a time of 65.4 seconds, and that makes it a whole second faster than the Renault, which is actually a lot considering how short this circuit is.
So the Astra was the fastest round our track, and it's also by far the best looking.
The Astra GTC is a great looking car, and the body kit and large alloys of the VXR model make it even more head turning without compromising the design. The Megane, on the other hand, is a little bit more boy racery, especially in white with these red bits of trim. However, you can't deny that it still looks the part. As for the Focus, well...
Sorry Ford, but compared to the other two cars, yours is a little bit of a munter, and I certainly wouldn't recommend this bright orange paintwork, which incidentally is called Tangerine Scream. Oh!
Oh dear, things aren't going particularly well for the Ford. It's the ugliest and the slowest. But when you take the car out onto the road, all is forgiven.
Here, away from a circuit, the Focus, it just feels so right. Yes, the steering's sharper than the normal car, and there's that engine which is really punchy, and it makes a great sound as well, but it still feels like a Focus, and that means that it rides brilliantly. In fact, it just glides over bumps in the road, and when you are on the power and you're flown from bend to bend, you almost get the sensation that you're flying, and that's just great. It feels wonderful. And even then, when you're not driving hard, it's very comfy to travel in, and that's helped by the fact that these Recaro seats, they're just so supportive. I really like them.
Another great thing about the Ford is the price. It starts from just £22,000, and that makes it £2,000 less than the Renault and £4,000 less than the Vauxhall. It has the best economy as well, 39 miles per gallon if you're interested. And while I'm being boring, the 5-door body also makes it the most practical.
One of the major problems with high-performance front-wheel drive cars is that sending loads of power through the front wheels often results in the dreaded torque steer. Ford have tried to get around that problem by using electronic trickery through the car's electric power steering system, and it kind of works, but the steering wheel does still wiggle a bit when you accelerate. Renault, on the other hand, have gone for a good old-fashioned mechanical solution, and their Perfo Hub front suspension geometry setup means that, well, look at this, right? Second gear, I'm going to put my foot down, the wheel is staying straight. Now, don't do that at home, the road is completely empty. It is safe to do that, but it really illustrates the point. No torque steer at all. And I think overall, the Megane has the purest and nicest feeling steering of all three hot hatches.
It's not all perfect though. The Megane Cup's more extreme suspension is so hard it finds bumps on the road which don't exist in the other cars. And although you can get a non-cut model with a less focused setup, that's kind of missing the point of this car really. And then there's the Astra.
Coming from a smooth track and then driving on a normal British road, you think, oh my God, no, the Astra, its suspension's just way too firm. And then you realise that you've left it in VXR mode. And when you turn that off, the suspension, which is adjustable, becomes more compliant, and it's actually very comfy and easy to live with this car. However, then you're free to notice some of its downsides, and one is the fact that the turbo engine, unlike the other two, it does actually suffer some turbo lag. Also, while the car does have clever front suspension to minimise torque steer, if you accelerate hard over an uneven surface, the wheel will still squirm in your hand. And then there's the fact that while Vauxhall have used hydraulic power assistance for the steering, actually it has less feedback and feel than the other two cars. And as a result, most of the time, it doesn't feel as much fun as it should.
This means that while it can cover ground at a devastating pace and is the undisputed king on the track, it's actually the least engaging of the three to drive. And this rather complicates things when choosing which car is the best buy. But let's see if we can figure it out.
Okay, it's time to decide which of these cars is the best. Is it the Astra, which is the nicest looking and is the fastest round our track? Or how about the Megane? It ran the VXR very close and ultimately is more fun more of the time. Or what about the Focus? Yes, it's the ugliest and the slowest, but it's also the cheapest and the most practical. Do you know what? For the life of me, I can't quite make my mind up.
After hours of pondering, I decided the winner would actually pick itself. It would be the car I'd choose to drive all the way home in. And that car was...
So it's a new day and a new jumper. However, that's not important. What is important is the car I'm sat in. And you've probably realised already, it's the Ford Focus ST. So why did I choose it? Well, I'll admit that the Megane and the Astra, they're quicker and they corner harder, but that doesn't make them better road cars. The Focus, it just has a more playful, less serious feel. And overall, that makes it more fun. And isn't that what hot hatches are supposed to be all about?